Hydration isn't always the sexiest topic that people want to talk about, but it is the most crucial and it's the most important for everything that we want to do from a health standpoint. Nothing is going to work at full capacity that you do, diet, vitamins, working out, unless you are properly hydrated.
Yay Networks.
One of the things that I love sharing with y'all is Behind the Brand. It's a sub-series we do inside of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, this podcast. And it's taking a closer look, inside peek inside of the brand. And these are things that we see on shelves. We're consuming these. This is conversations with the founders, the creators, the CEOs of those brands. How did the idea come to be? How did they actually launch it? What did that look like? What did the research and development look like? What did they learn along the way? And what can we learn from that as well? I find it fascinating. And today's, I am really excited for a couple of reasons. One, the product is MyHy. MyHy is a sports drink. It is actually an electrolyte sports drink mix that you would add to water. There's MyHy Active. There's also MyHy Zero, which is zero sugar. These are packets that you would put into your water bottles. And then there's also MyHy Freezer Pops. And we'll talk a lot more about these and where you can find them, all of that. The founder of MyHy is Matt Flynn. He is a former quarterback from LSU, family, friends who I've shared ahead of time that, we've got this interview coming up, this podcast for y'all about MyHy and Behind the Brand. They're excited to hear about MyHy. They're also excited to learn more about Matt. He's a really, really nice guy, as y'all will hear. He played for LSU. Like we said, he actually won a national title as he played for LSU, and he's super modest about it. He actually just kind of glosses over that in his conversation, but, huge accolades. And he played for Green Bay. He's played for the Patriots. He also played for the Saints. And since he's out of the football world, he, as he says, he's really fortunate to find his passion so quickly for what is beyond football. So sweating, as you'll hear, was something that it was an issue for him. And he really didn't give a bunch of thought to it for a lot of years, which I think is how many of us are. It's something that you just kind of think there's nothing that we're really going to do differently. We're going to reach for the typical. We've got the sports drinks and that's that. He's really educated himself so much on the why and the science of sweating. And so he'll be sharing that with us. And then also how this product came to be. So here it is with Matt Flynn giving us a sneak peek behind the brand of MyHy. Welcome, Matt. I am excited, honored to have you joining me. I'm excited to hear more about you, how the MyHy brand came about.
Yeah, great. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me on. Excited to talk about my baby. I guess my wife calls it my second wife. That's MyHy. So
yeah, no, it's really, really cool. I started seeing it on shelves, I guess, locally here in New Orleans, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 at the most. And so, I was seeing it. We've tried it. Anybody who drinks this, it's a crowd pleaser. Everyone loves the mixability, the taste, the flavor profile. I also love the nutritional profile and featured it a couple of months ago on our TV segment, our WGNO TV segment, and your team reached out and was like, hey, would you like to talk to Matt about it? I'm like, would I? And we can talk a bit more as we go, but just for our listeners, part of the reason I really love the MyHy sports drink product is that for someone who is like I am, just a heavy sweater or a salty sweater, the nutritional profile of it is even better, far better, I would say, than a traditional sports drink. And we'll kind of get into that, but it's, there's nothing artificial in here. It's the way that we would look to replenish our fluids, replenish our electrolytes. It's solid. Backing up though, tell us just a little bit about your background. I know anyone I've shared that I'm doing this interview with you, especially our LSU fans, they're fired up.
Good. Well, that's the funny thing about football fans, sports fans in general. I know that outside the LSU fan base, it might get a little hazy. Maybe remember hearing me, but I'm an aging football player now, and I retired from playing in 2015, and it doesn't feel like it's been 7 years, but I'll be danged if it hasn't. So, but no, I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, we saw the segments you did in New Orleans. So I'm glad, I think it got posted to my Facebook. Somebody shared it with us, so it got connected. So I'm glad we were able to hook up here and discuss, because hydration is something that I'm very passionate about. And I guess I'm one of these lucky ex-football players that was able to quickly find something that he was very passionate about.
Right. You're right.
So, and able to use my background and the history that I had. And I guess to give a brief background, I was born and raised in Tyler, Texas. So I grew up certainly in the heat, playing every type of sport known to man that I could, and spending every day outside, whatever it was, riding my bike and playing sports, whatever it was. And then I guess I was a glutton for punishment. I got recruited to LSU to play football, so I went to an even hotter place to play for the next 5 years of my life. So I was at LSU playing ball 03 to 07, and then in 2008 I was drafted to the Green Bay Packers.
Wait, you're glossing over a couple of things though. So backing up, you were there 5 years. First season you were redshirted, and then 4 years. In your 5th season, you were starting quarterback, and you guys won the national title.
Yeah, we won the national championship. Yeah. Sure did. So it was a cool experience. I was a part of some really good teams. So I bookended my career actually with national champions at LSU in 2003 as a red shirt, and then 2008 or 2007 as the starter. So it was a really, really great experience. And I guess that was the time that I kind of started realizing I was having some hydration issues. And then I really started hitting me when I at that point I spent my whole life in a hot environment. I get drafted to Green Bay, one of the coldest environments you can go to. And so I was kind of a fish out of the water as far as the weather goes, but was very surprised when my hydration problems continued when I got to that level in a cold environment, or an environment that wasn't 105 degrees with a ton of humidity. Because
when you were at LSU, you were saying that, especially during training camp, you were getting cramps all the time, and to such a degree of full body cramps that you would require IV bags. Like, this isn't just like a little bit of cramping.
This was serious cramping that I would get, especially during training camp, like the dog days of summer. I mean, but I wasn't unique. I mean, we were probably, there's probably 15 to 20 guys in August after practices getting IVs and things like that. But I was one of them. I'd get full body cramps. I'd have a lot of IVs. And look, I played quarterback, so I wasn't running 10% as much as everybody else was. I mean, I go out there, and sure, the workload is pretty large for any player. But I was not as active as a lot of the positions were. But when I was at LSU and just growing up in general, I just kind of thought that it was my path, and I'm going to drink what they tell me, going to drink what's on the shelf, going to do all the things I know to do, and I'm just going to have to deal with dehydration. I'm going to have to deal with being dizzy, getting headaches, being fatigued. Of course, the cramping, the physical part is there, but it's just something that I thought I'd have to deal with it and just tough, push through it, be tough, blah, blah, blah. And that's what a lot of people think. When I got to Green Bay, now football was a job. It wasn't a sport. And just like any other job in the world, if you have to miss days, then those start stacking up and you can't perform as well, then they start looking for other people to do your job. So at that point, I really had to start diving into the details of hydration. Why am I feeling like this? What are electrolytes? Which are the correct ones? Absorption rates, just all the stuff. And, being with the background, like the area that I was, professional athletes, the team's going to invest in that, and they're going to bring in the best dietitians, nutritionists, strength coaches, whatever it is. They bring in the best support staff. So I got the luxury of being able to pick the brains of some really smart people and learning. And so how I started MyHy is basically what I learned, from those people, from those nutritionists, from those trainers. In particular, the nutritionist in Green Bay, who we had hired, I think he got hired in Green Bay in 2013. Really kind of changed my perspective on hydration in general, health, and just everything. He was a wealth of knowledge, and he actually did sweat testing on us. So he would collect sweat samples, and he would run it through a machine and figure out what our sweat concentration was.
Tell our listeners, what does that look like for someone to collect your sweat sample?
Well, it can either be hard work. So the machine that he had, it was actually a machine that you could sit in an office and it would induce sweat and he could collect it. But other universities, there's other ways to do it where you actually just put cotton patches on different parts of the body and go work out or go to practice, and then you collect it. And so, like, sweat concentration in your lower back might have a different sodium content as your forearm or your neck or the back of your leg or something like that. So different parts of your body might sweat a little bit more or less sodium.
And when we're talking about sweat testing, you can test volume, but specifically what he was looking at was also the concentration of electrolytes, which would namely be sodium and a little bit of potassium in there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what he was looking at, the main ingredient. So, over 90% of what we're losing in our sweat is sodium. That's the main ingredient. But a lot of sports drinks and things have other stuff. I call them kind of marketing ingredients. Like, yes, it's stuff that the body needs to function, but you don't need it, basically what I call sweat replacement. And a which is what a sports drink should be, is sweat replacement. I talk about this a lot when I do my own, pitches and talk to customers about, why our product over others is basically MyHy. What we did was we cut the BS out of the sports drink and only replaced what you lose in sweat in the right levels. It's a really simple concept, but we don't use marketing ingredients that just sound good on a label. We just use what we learned, and we try to make it super simple.
Well, and you had said, when you and I talked a couple of days ago, kind of prepping for our interview, you had said that just growing up, as you said, like as a kid, it was something I always struggled with through high school, through college. And my question to you then was like, well, did you have an interest in nutrition? And you're like, yeah, I mean, like most kids that age, but you're sort of like, you just do what you're told and you don't question it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you're right, especially in, you go to college and I was 17 when I got to LSU. You're fresh out of high school and you have all these professionals. You got high paid coaches that are coaching you. You have all these people, strength coaches. And of course, you don't question much. You do it.
Right.
And most people, like I was, so fortunate being at LSU. Like LSU was always doing the latest and greatest stuff as far as when it comes to nutrition and hydration and all those things. Now, I was in school in 2003, so that's almost 20 years ago.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Science has come a long way. And at that time, maybe that was kind of like the best of the knowledge or what was starting to be studied in sweat concentrations and the work that the nutritionist that you're talking about was a dietitian, a sweat scientist. Was it Adam Corzin?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yes, it was.
And so, that was, maybe almost a decade later from when you started LSU. And so, but at the time, those coaches are giving you the guidance to the best that they know at that moment in time. And so let's just say LSU, you would have the IV bags. And at that point, you were told still just drink the traditional sports drinks.
Pretty much. Yeah, mostly traditional. They would supplement with like little salt packs, and they're every school at that level is sponsored by a big player in the hydration game or the drink game. It kind of depends on what school you're at, on what other stuff they provide or what they're willing to provide. But yeah, at the time we would drink our normal sports drinks with extra like little salt packs. And they're terrible. You had to choke them down, and nobody liked to do it. So the problem, what we found is like if it doesn't taste good and people don't like to do it, they only use it in a reaction.
Right.
So after they're dehydrated, they don't want to proactively do it, which stops them from dehydrating. So
they're just Band-Aiding it after it's happened because like you said, it doesn't taste good. Who wants just kind of the salt pack added? And then I wanted to ask this. So like now you're playing for the NFL, you have this expert who's doing the sweat testing, they're seeing what your specific personal concentration of sweat is, kind of that body average, as you said, it kind of varies depending on like where the placement might be, where that testing is. But when you learned, okay, here's what Matt's optimal kind of recipe would be for that sports drink, and you're understanding what it feels like for the first time to truly be properly hydrated, what was the solution that you consumed then? Because MyHy wasn't developed then.
Yeah, right.
So what did you do to like get that, what was recommended to you is that optimal,
Right.
like Matt's sports drink.
I'm sitting here, I'm the owner of MyHy. So, I'm going against every like business practice in the world to call out other companies that I use, but I'm going to, because there's good products out there and there's bad products. And most of the people that we market to, I'm like, hey, I want you to drink MyHy, but if you're not going to drink MyHy, like do something. Like,
at least take care of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. At least take care of yourself. Before I got sweat tested for the first time in Green Bay, I had started using it. One of the other teams I was on, I'd started to drink Pedialyte. And Pedialyte made me feel better than I'd ever had, because it was the first thing I drank that was outside of the standard sports drinks. And so that was maybe the start of my enlightening of hydration. And when I sweat tested, I figured out why, because my sweat sodium loss was right in range of the concentration of what Pedialyte was. So I was replacing the sodium at the same levels that I was losing it. So, the way we look at hydration is your body basically has I call it a hydration flat line of water and sodium that it needs to maintain proper balance. And if you're drinking too much water or low sodium products, your water levels spike and your sodium levels drop. And I'm talking in regards to, I'll back up a little and say, people that are sweating at the time, or high sweaters, or in really sweaty situations. If you're sweating a lot, losing sodium and only drinking water or low sodium, water level spikes, sodium levels drop. The opposite of that, if you are drinking very, very high sodium or eating really high sodium foods and not as much water concentration, your sodium levels can spike and your water levels can drop. So we want to pretty much maintain a flat line. So what I was doing,
like an easy way of kind of just imagining that as listeners, it's basically you want to match your losses.
Exactly. So what my sweat loss was, it was about 3 times more concentrated with sodium than the normal sports drink. And so it's not unheard of at a practice to lose 10 to 15 pounds of sweat in a practice. And so when you start stacking those losses up, the sodium levels and potassium levels are so low in your body that, it causes dehydration, just like it does if you didn't drink any water. Like the lack of dehydration is really lack of minerals or lack of water in your body. So that's
Pedialyte was sort of your go-to at the time. I was wondering if you had like created this concoction, but that was sort of your...
Well, so that was kind of my aha moment, because I didn't know why Pedialyte worked until I got sweat tested. Then I figured out why.
Yes, okay.
But our nutritionist in Green Bay, he would use a kind of a concoction of different ingredients. Or different products. He had some products he worked with out of the UK that he would send over. Just some different things, but really just trying to match those sodium levels. And
putting it just kind of into numbers for the listeners. So like just ballpark 16 ounces of something like a Gatorade or a Powerade is going to have in the like 230-ish milligrams of sodium. And so 230 sodium, I think the other thing is like, someone looks at a label and we've become so trained, okay, I want to keep my sugars low. I want to keep these numbers low. I want to keep sodium low. But you don't when you're losing a lot of sweat and you're losing a lot of salty sweat. And so to kind of as a frame of reference, Gatorade that might be, again, Gatorade Powerade, we're looking at about 230-ish for about what would be a 16-ounce bottle of that. And then a MyHy pack that you would put into about that same amount of water is about 640. And so you're looking at, that's the difference. And so when Matt is saying, he's losing, 3 times more sodium, that's the difference. And so I've just been an advocate of this for years. When we're working with athletes and they're losing large volumes of sweat and that salty sweat, Gatorade or Powerade is just not enough. And I can say this, I know you may be too polite to, but on traditional Gatorade or Powerade, I also don't like the ingredients. I don't like the artificial colors, all of that. And then Pedialyte also still has that. They have their natural or their clear, but it's still not ideal other ingredients and other add-ins. Let's take a minute to share about Caraway Home, one of our partners for this week's episode. Caraway Home's non-toxic cookware and bakeware collections are made with a ceramic coating, all are made without any toxic materials. And that ceramic coating means a naturally slick coating, so you don't really need much oil or butter. And there's really no need for nonstick cooking spray at all. We love our cookware. The pans heat up quickly, they cook evenly, they're incredibly easy to clean. They're available in a variety of colors, and even the color palette is elevated compared to traditional kitchenware. Visit carawayhome.com/fueled for 10% off. This deal is exclusively for y'all, our listeners, so visit carawayhome/fueled or use promo code FUELED for 10% off at checkout. Caraway, non-toxic cookware made modern. So you've kind of got your understanding, and you're kind of starting to understand the impact of this and the types of ingredients. Also, we should say that if someone, is curious about sweat testing, it puts you into different categories like low concentration, medium low, medium high, or high concentration of sweaters. Were you medium high or high?
I was medium high. So that's what when I started the company, my goal when I started was to do kind of emulate what we did in Green Bay. We basically started a customized hydration company. My first purchase when I started the company was a sweat test machine. And basically we started sweat testing people because I wanted to customize their hydration plan. So I would take somebody, I'd collect their sweat, test it, and I'd put them into one of 4 categories, and that was low sodium, medium low, medium high, and high sodium. And so after that, I would prescribe them a certain amount of sodium or sports drinks or whatever it was. We started doing this, and after doing a lot of people, we did this for about 2 years, and we started discovering that most people were falling in the same category, which was our medium-high category.
By most, you mean like almost like 90%?
I would say probably close to 90%. Yeah. And this was also, so we were doing our own studies, and look, like I said, I didn't have like an interest in health or medical when I graduated, with a degree in football. So I've learned all this, post college, and I always make sure that I'm like the dumbest person in the room when we're talking about this stuff. I always make sure I got really smart people around me to help guide us. We researched a lot of other studies that were done in different geographical locations. So we basically took our remedial studies that we were doing and compared it to other white papers out there. And also the LSU athletic department, they were doing the same studies. They had a sports science team that was collecting sweat samples from every player that was going out on the field. And so I was able to kind of put together an average based on a lot of different studies.
Let me ask this. When we say, okay, maybe as many as 90% fall into that same category, that medium high concentration of sodium in our sweat, would most of those people that were coming through that the data was collected on, are most of those athletes, or would some of them be like your mom? Like, is the fact that someone their body is, adapted, their body is, has a very like efficient and effective cooling mechanism with the sweat. The athletes tend to sweat more because their bodies are actually in really good shape, versus the person who's may not sweat much at all, but they're beet red and they're holding all that heat in. Right. So I'm wondering, like, the sweat concentration, would it be, if you were just going to check the person like at the DMV, would theirs be?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we tested all sorts of people. Of course, like different studies that we were reading white papers on, or like the LSU athletic department, like they're studying one particular set of person, athlete from the ages, 18 to 22 or whatever it is. But we did all sorts, old, young, men, women, big, small. We did
athletic, not athletic.
Yeah. And so, what we read, what we were advised on, what we've talked to a lot of people on to help us with this is basically it's sweat DNA. So your sweat is your sweat. It doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or 6. The same sweat you had as a kid is probably going to be the same sweat you have as an adult. Whether you're in shape, you're not in good shape. Sweat rates can vary based on different health issues, age, locations, and your sweat concentration may fluctuate a little bit. Let's just say you go into a different, like high altitude. It might adjust for a day or two, but then it'll readjust to what it should be. Or if you just go crazy on your diet and eat like 4 crawfish boils in 2 days, it might adjust for a little bit, of course. But it's always going to come back to we call it the sweat DNA, like what your sweat is supposed to be. So that's what we found. And it didn't matter if you were an athlete or a 55-year-old construction worker. So that was, that's the research that we've done. And that's what we base what we do on.
I think that's fascinating. I mean, it's just truly fascinating. And I shared with you on our call before, but for me personally, the conversation around sweat it's like near and dear because it is constantly a struggle for me to keep up with that hydration. I was telling you, like, I sweat, I'm convinced, on the level of like Rafa Nadal. And if anyone's watched him play tennis, like as he hits the ball, you just see spray everywhere.
Yeah.
100%. That is, my husband washes my clothes. Well, okay, he doesn't wash my clothes. I wash my own clothes. But if they are, none of his clothes will be in the washing machine with mine. He keeps them completely separate. He like will not allow there to be crossover and
cross contamination there.
Yeah, and so for me, and it's something that I've just accepted, and it doesn't embarrass me. And like I wear a lot of black, and it hides it if you're in situations where it's not appropriate. But for people who have that, like it's really important that we know, okay, we've got to, we don't need to maybe watch our sodium as much. And even if someone may not be such a salty sweater, if you have that high volume, you're still going to be losing large amounts of sodium.
Yeah, it is. And it's the volume amount is so individually based. Like we could be doing the same thing, same environment, same clothes, and I'll lose 20 pounds of sweat in a day and you'll lose 8 pounds.
It's just crazy.
It's so individually based.
Yeah. And you see, you may be drenched, I'm drenched, and then you've got the person right next to you. You're like, they are just high and dry. Like, not a drop of sweat in their hair. And you're like, how is this possible? But yeah, just totally different bodies.
Yeah.
So when you started MyHy as the brand of what it looks like now, and you started to kind of develop that formula that you said, okay, we're going to go with one standard formula because we're seeing that instead of doing it customized, let's do something that seems to kind of be that broad reaching.
Sure.
That first formula you did was not flavored.
Right. Yeah. So 2017, I guess it was spring, summer 2017, we released kind of our beta product, and it was a flavorless, basically add-in. So it's kind of trying to emulate what we used to have, like with the sodium packet, that kind of application, but with more scientific quantities and reasonings and better ingredients, and make it not taste like crap. So guys would want to drink it. And, of course, with my relationship down here with LSU, I wanted to guinea pig and try it out with them and see how they liked it. We wanted to create that product that worked with the sports drink that they were currently using and sponsored by.
What did that look like to make it? Like the R&D, like where were you mixing, tasting, coming up with what ingredients to use?
I did a lot of research, market research, just basically bought every sports drink and hydration product known to man that I could find, and I bought them all, brought them in, and talked to a lot of people, talked to different nutritionists, talked to people that knew what they were talking about from an ingredient standpoint to figure out, which ingredients, what clean ingredients, why this type of sodium over that type of sodium, why this and that. And I just started pulling together what ingredients I thought would work. And then I took that to basically Co-Packer. It was a company in Florida that did a R&D for me for a couple of months. And it was a tricky request on something that, hey, I want to put something that has a lot of sodium and potassium in it, but hey, I don't want it to taste like anything.
Right.
So I tried a lot of different ingredients, a lot of different, types of natural sweeteners, acids, things like there's a fine balance. So there was a lot of packages going back and forth between me and the company in Florida, and I'd taste it and mix it into other sports drinks to see what I thought. I would give them a couple of tasting notes, and they would send me another recipe 2 days later. So it was a lot of just back and forth taste testing and tweaking.
Did you enjoy that process?
Yeah, it was fun. Looking back on it, it's all been a really cool journey. It's it seems like it's so long ago and so crazy because we're so much, I guess, more sophisticated now. But I remember just starting, just Googling, Flavor House or USA Flavor House or Liquid, I didn't know. I just started Googling things. I had no idea what I was doing. they did a really good job and really created a really great product. And that first product, man, it was really cool to see. Maybe you can mix it in a smoothie. You could mix it into a lemon, anything that was already sweet and tart. You could mix it and make a sports drink,
and not even really taste it.
Yeah, so that's how we marketed it first. Is like turn anything into a sports drink. Now, anything really means something that's already sweet and tart.
Right.
It's not going to taste good in coffee. It's not
right.
Not going to taste good in like chocolate milk, but you could throw it into Kool-Aid or lemonade or whatever it is, and it'd be a really cool sports drink.
And LSU used that season, like around 2017.
They use it really aggressively, and a lot of the statistics are kind of confidential that they keep, but I will say that they minimized, when I said earlier that we were probably averaging 15 to 20 IVs a day during training camp when I was playing. Now the kids got it a lot easier these days. Their practices aren't quite as hard, but they minimized that very, very substantially that season.
That's tremendous. So, yeah,
they had a lot of success.
Let's take a minute to talk about GoLee Nutrition, one of our sponsors for this week's episode. GoLee Nutrition makes it easier than ever to incorporate different supplements, different nutrients that can be beneficial, especially for those who don't love swallowing a tablet or a capsule. They have a variety of different gummies ranging from apple cider vinegar, ashwagandha, kids multi, superfruit, super greens, and dreamy sleep and triple action immune gummies. Here's the thing. Unlike many different gummy type products, they actually have a moderate amount of that key active ingredient and minimal sugar. No artificial sweeteners, flavors, or synthetic colors. They're vegan, they're gluten-free, and they're non-GMO. Go to golee.com/fueled. That's go.goli.com/fueled. You'll be brought straight to that checkout page with our discount already applied. Super easy. Once again, that's go.golee.com/fueled to make GoLee part of your wellness routine. Please note, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are also not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. How did it go from the unflavored to, because now it's the flavors are just incredible. And like I said earlier, it's just a crowd pleaser for anyone who tastes it.
Yeah. So after that year, I was like, okay, well, we did the research. We did multiple years of sweat studies. We've gathered all this. We made a beta product, and, I'll be danged if it doesn't work. And at that point, it was like, now what do I do? Like, it's all been kind of fun and games, like researchers trying to create a product. Now I got to put like my big boy business pants on and figure out how to make this a viable business. Again, I'll emphasize that without a business degree, like I don't know much except for what I've learned through the last 5 or 6 years. And at that point, I knew a lot less than I do now. But I always have taken the next best step that I thought at the time and have not looked back. So when I started, I was like, you know what? It seems very hard to go against Gatorade, Powerade on the retail shelf. It seems like it's expensive. I don't know anything about retail. But what I do know is I have a lot of friends that are in safety in the industrial and construction world. So I think at that point, I really turned my focus and my passion on to, I wanted to take a quality product that is, I've only seen like athletes, professional college athletes, they're granted like the best of everything, right? And so in this realm was the only place that had this elite current technology, new science hydration. I wanted to be the guy that took it to everywhere. All these big groups of people that are in these extremely high sweat, intense job descriptions, and take them a better product, because most of those places at the time were so far behind in their science that they need something. Athletes need it for performance. There's tens of thousands of people in the country that need it for safety. When we're talking about job site safety, when we're talking about first responders, military, you name it. And that's what I wanted to do. So even to this day, we don't have a big retail presence. And that's not because we can't do it or because I don't think it's a good business plan, but it's just because I've been so passionate and focused forward on these big groups of people and doing more direct sales that I haven't done a lot direct to consumers. And my kind of goal at the time was like, hey, look, let's build this Let's go to these industrial construction customers. Let's go to military. Let's go to law enforcement, fire departments, first responder, like disaster relief, and let's create a market there. And then once we decide to turn on the retail faucet, like you already have these big groups of people that have heard of your product.
Right,
so
that brand awareness is
like
huge.
Yeah, the brand awareness is there. So that's kind of our goal.
Well, let me ask, how did you go from the flavorless though to the flavored? Where did that step happen?
So at that point, when I made that decision of where I wanted to go, I had to make a good tasting product at that point. I couldn't go and do a flavorless product. It was just, that was more of a proof of concept. So
because you would be making the assumption that everyone's going to have some good tasting already sweetened beverage with them. But in this case, a lot of times they may only have access to water.
Sure. Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to create, we wanted to make some semi-familiar flavors for people. Like there's companies out there and they got their own business plans that will, honeydew melon or whatever, like these random flavors that sound good, and they're probably really good, but people when they want sports drinks, we found that they want familiarity with their flavors.
100%, yeah.
Simple, something they can get down. So I hired a company out of California to do my flavor, basically a flavor house. We went into about 8 months of R&D, and basically I had the profile as far I knew what the nutritional panel was I wanted to hit. Now, how do we make those flavors really good? And I was really, really picky. We did a lot of research on, I say a lot of research. We did research and studies with our flavor house and with ourselves about how does the brain talk to your taste buds, specifically when you're sweaty and hot and in a stressful mode. Like what do you crave? Because I wanted to create a product that was I like to call it chuggable. Like you can get down, it's clean, it's light, and you can get it down and go about your business and not have like the film in your mouth or be heavy on your stomach. So we just I based all of our flavor profiles on what we had researched, what the brain kind of communicates to your taste buds when you're in hot, sweaty situations. And, at that point we created a couple of different products. We created one with zero sugar and it was for a reason. Is we wanted a zero sugar product so people could hydrate when they're off, hydrate when they're not active, hydrate the night before, the morning before, whatever it is. And of course, zero, just from a consumer standpoint, is a very popular consumable consumer good. But then we did our active product. We've been calling our MyHy Active. We're kind of rebranding. It's going to be called our standard MyHy product. And this is what I push for people when they're actively sweating. It's got a small but strategic amount of sugar in it. And it's got about 300 milligrams of sodium more per liter than the zero product does. Because when our body is in stressful mode, in a stressful, sweaty situation for an extended period of time, our sodium concentration spikes in our sweat. So we got a little bit more sodium in our active product than we do our zero product. So those are the two products that we created. We made an orange and a lemon lime, and that's what we started out with the first year. We do popsicles as well. So those were the three products that we made.
Yeah, no, it's really, really cool. I actually haven't seen the zero in stores.
You haven't?
I've seen the zero online, of course, but not in stores. But in stores, I have seen the popsicles, and but they're on the shelf stable, like they're not in the freezer section. We should tell listeners, so if you're looking for them, don't look in the freezer section. They're like what you would buy and then freeze your own. And you invested in a factory, your own factory in Baton Rouge to produce.
Yes. So in the market that I wanted to attack at first, which was the industrial construction hard hat employee, the problem why there wasn't big quality products in that area is because, of course, when you're buying for employee, like there's always the price conscious buyer at that point when one person's buying for 500 people.
Right.
So I knew to compete in that world, I would have to be able to make the product and make it sell it at an affordable price that could compete with the cheap product products that were out there in the market already. I wanted to cut the middleman out as far as a factory goes, and just invested in a factory here and started bringing in the machines and bringing in people and producing our own products. So that was a really cool step that we had. I knew I'd eventually get there when I started because that's what I wanted. I wanted to be, vertically integrated like that, but it happened a lot sooner than I had ever thought. But It's turned out to be a really, really cool deal because we get to do everything here in Baton Rouge, and we produce everything, we source everything, and I get 100% knowledge of what's going into the product.
It's probably something that if someone would have asked you that when you were 20, you would be like, I can't even imagine. And that is why I love you walking us through this journey of it, because I think so many people have these really incredible ideas, but the idea of you're going to have a factory, you're producing this whole product, you've got this team working there is so far removed from that idea that's like just a seed in our brains. And so hearing how you started, and then also I think it's so refreshing that you didn't have expertise in this and you did literally start with, let me educate myself, let me see what's out there. And it's a labor of love. If you added up, probably even before you had that first product, it was probably thousands of hours. So it's a real lesson for people that it's one thing to have this really incredible idea. And then there's also this recipe that has to happen with not shying away from just that time, that hard work, that perseverance, and just pushing it through, seeing it through. Your team is small. You said there's about 9 or 10 that work at the factory, a few people in the office, but for the large part, you're the one that is, I'm air quoting sales rep, but you're repping the brand in terms of sales and expanding the brand.
I'm not following a playbook on this. I'm just kind of doing, I'm doing what I feel is the best step forward. And, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. But I've kind of been spearheading the sales and just the brand development, I guess. Now I bring in strategic people. We have a pretty good sales force out there in the industrial world. We've really been going hard after the military, government. In the last year, I've been working with the Louisiana National Guard for the last couple of years. How
do y'all distribute to them? So how do y'all get it to them?
We just ship. We ship everything. We'll drop ship it. We'll send them LTLs. We'll send them truckloads. We'll send UPS. During a lot of hurricane relief. I'm loading up the back.
I love that you're dropping the lingo. LTL is limited truckload.
Yeah.
FTL would be a full truckload, right?
That's right. Stuff I did not learn in college.
Right.
It's all just, boots on the ground here, but. Yeah, it's and then the last 2 years we've had really terrible hurricanes coming through, and I'm loading up my personal trailer full of product. I'm loading up my truck. I'm getting friends that take product out to different locations for for all the amazing response we get from other states when they bring in their utility workers, their bucket trucks, things like that. So,
and that's you guys donating to those.
A little bit of both. Yeah. We do really cool. A decent amount of donations.
That's really cool.
We tried to, get our name out there the most, but I think at the heart of everything with us, we want to help, and we want to, of course, be a successful business and make money and all that good stuff. But at the heart and the core of everything, we want to help, and that's why we've really focused on the military this year, because not ever having a military background for me personally, it's great to be able to see it work with soldiers and try to eliminate heat casualties and help them in their training and deployments and different things that they have to do. It gives you some, small sense of, patriotism or whatever it is to be able to do that and offer it to them at a fair price and give them a high quality product. It's just, I'm doing things with the company that didn't envision, but it's just things I like to do. And it's cool. So, but we've grown a lot. We continue to grow every year. We send product from coast to coast.
Do you sort of operate under the approach of you have a loose plan of where you're going, but you also stay flexible enough to allow for opportunities to come up that maybe you had no idea they were going to happen?
Yeah, I do. That's a good way to put it. I have my goals, I guess, and my plan is more for the company is more of an outline. It's not a detailed outline. It's more bullet points of how I want to get to where I want to be. And I can make diversions from that and add more bullet points, take some away. But, I want to, of course, I want to be, have a successful brand and everybody hear about it and go to the store and get it. And everybody wants that. But I think you also want to make an impact positively. And that's kind of what I want to do. And I try to use common sense with business. And, if it makes sense to bring on a salesperson because I want to grow my high school football teams in the state of Florida. I mean, if that opportunity arises, it's great. But we do a lot of stuff. Most of our sales come word of mouth. And, we don't spend a lot of money on advertising. The marketing dollars we do spend is more, going to conferences or sending people to National Guard events or Best Warrior competitions and things like that.
And that
so that's
also,
why a lot of people haven't heard of us.
It allows y'all to grow with that, like that organic, people being aware of it and having that growth. It's like you've probably been able to expand little by little by little as that's happened. And you're sort of able to control a little bit of what that team is versus doing this tremendous ad campaign that like it may be more than you're bargaining for like at this moment, but doing this in increments that y'all can have that growth and then catch up with it. Catch up. Because it's a small team that is really behind this brand.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the kind of word of mouth growth approach because for one, it's a good product. And like I would be a terrible salesperson if the product didn't work or I didn't believe in it. Like I've seen it work. I've seen, man, we get calls all the time, just like, mom's crying because their son, made it through the game for the first time without cramping it. Or just like things that we get calls for things that we never imagined or we weren't trying to do, but just positive feedback of, there's a lot of disorders out there where people they lose so much sodium and they just have disorder. I mean, it's been amazing.
Things that you had no idea that started as an athlete and yet it's been able to touch all these people. Let's take a minute to talk about Bonafide, a sponsor for this week's episode. Bonafide is for women dealing with perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms who want safe, effective, non-drug solutions they can trust. Silvessa by Bonafide is the first comprehensive system designed to restore and protect hair and skin affected by estrogen decline from the inside and out. Silvessa delivers 3-way support for hair and skin. It includes a daily capsule, hair serum, and skin serum that work together to support healthier looking hair and skin. Give Bonafide a try today. No hormones, no prescription required. Our listeners receive a special offer up to 54% off when you subscribe to any product by going to hellobonafide.com using promo code FUELED. That's hello, BONAFIDE.com, promo code FUELED to claim your special offer up to 54% off when you subscribe to multiple products, including Silvessa. For best prices, free shipping, go to hellobonafide.com using promo code FUELED. So the focus has been first responders, like you said, that law enforcement, National Guard, disaster relief, construction workers. You referred to them when we talked earlier, like hard hat employees, people who are really highly at risk. The distribution to retailers has been kind of secondary to those, and that might be sort of among your next steps, I would think.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, we got into all the Rouse's grocery stores locally. Now, they kind of go from Lake Charles to like the Mobile, Alabama area. I think they're about 75 to 85 stores, and that's been a really great partnership. And the movement's been really good, and they gave us a good spot to kind of launch us. And what they've seen and what we've seen, and as well as our online sales, is we get a lot of repeat buyers. Like it's hard to get somebody to try something, but once customers try it, we're getting a really good, strong repeat buy because it's a good tasting product and it works. But yeah, the retail has been secondary, but I know that at some point it's going to flip and we're going to want to push it that direction. Eventually one day we want to have our own, RTD product, ready to drink bottle. But it's just, these little packets that kind of call it my little ninja, especially like in the athletic world where companies have these big sponsorships for sports drinks with these teams, but I could not send a bottle there, but I can send a concentrate to these because it can kind of get anywhere. Yeah,
it can slip in and not be that competitor. What about a new addition to the product lineup? Because you have the MyHy Active, which just for our listeners, a packet that you would put into about 20 ounces of water is going to be about 55 calories. It's about 12 grams of sugar. Yet you also have the MyHy Zero with zero sugar for someone who doesn't need that. And so I think about someone who's, if they're out on the field, like you were saying, the construction workers, the athletes, the person who struggles to keep their energy up, the triathlete, the person who's doing these different races, and we're looking at this as that additional carbohydrate source. Yet then still having all those things from an electrolyte and hydration point that you need without the sugar and the MyHy Zero. And then you have the ones that are freezable for popsicles. So those are sort of the three categories, the MyHy Active, the Zero, and then the popsicles. Anything new that's come into that lineup that you can share?
We definitely have plans to release, similar to what some of the other companies do out there, to do some sort of immune support. That would kind of push that product into more of a supplement area. Just immune support for, hydration is so crucially important during flu season, and to get you back to keep your immune system working at full functionality. So we're going to come up with something eventually. I don't know if it's going to be next year. I don't know exactly when yet. And then we want to do some sort of energy, hydration. Now you're probably thinking that they don't go hand in hand, because they always say don't drink caffeine, it could dehydrate you. In reality, people are going to drink, especially in a lot of the markets that we serve, people are going to drink Red Bulls, they're going to drink Monsters, they're going to drink a lot of coffee, and then try to hydrate. So if we can get them a clean source of energy.
There is such a big misconception about caffeine being a diuretic. And the way that I always explain it is like, if someone's taking a caffeine pill, and this is, for our listeners, if someone's taking a caffeine pill, that's a diuretic. It's going to make you basically pee out more than the fluid that you're taking in, because it's just in a capsule. But if you look at the amount of caffeine that's in that cup of coffee or that tea or whatever it is, the liquid that's in there is going to offset the dehydrating effects of that caffeine. Right. And so it's one thing that, going back to actually we were saying earlier, almost 20 years ago, the guidance and the advice that you got from maybe the experts that were affiliated with the team 2 decades ago is different than what it would be now. Because 2 decades ago, as a dietitian, I would say exactly that. What counts towards your fluid? Anything that doesn't contain alcohol or caffeine. We would tell people that caffeinated beverages don't hydrate you. And then over the course of, 5 or 10 years, there was all this research that came out that on a cellular level, if someone was rehydrating with coffee or tea, it still did rehydrate them. And I was like, well, this is good news and bad news, because you don't want someone just to be like amped up on caffeine all day and be like, well, it hydrates me. You're going to feel bad for other reasons if that's the case. But it definitely sort of like, I don't know, it was sort of like liberating that if someone did have an iced coffee in the afternoon, it could count towards their hydration.
Exactly. And what we know today is not going to be the same as 10 years from now.
Right. Yeah, no, and then just keeping up with the science, not getting stuck in our own mindset, being open to those new things. And then, like you said, in your case, being open to the opportunities. Is there anything that we haven't covered?
I'm sure there's like 50 things that I didn't hit on about the product and things like that, but hydration is such a crucial part of the way our body functions. And it's not like the sexiest thing to always talk about. When I first was introduced to sweat testing, it was the first thing that he did to us. He didn't before, food, before weights, before anything. And the reason is because if you are not hydrated properly, nothing else that you take or do is going to work at 100%. No supplement you take, no vitamins that you take, nothing is going to work at full capacity if you're dehydrated or you're not hydrated properly. So it's kind of the foundation of your body, water and minerals, which is the foundation of planet Earth. It's the foundation of the human body. So that has to be the base of everything. It's the base for a lot of these clients that we hit and customers that we hit, it's the base of their safety. Of course, everyone knows that if you're cramping, it's probably because of dehydration. If you have a heat stroke, it's because of heat and dehydration. What they don't realize is that's like a last resort of the dehydration effects. The mind, the cognitive function, the mental processing, decision-making is the first thing that ever goes. When we talk about, let's say, a construction worker that's 6 stories up on a harness that is doing something fairly dangerous, you want him working at full mental capacity. If he's making bad decisions, if he's a little blurry at it, if he's dizzy, which are all dehydration effects, his job becomes a little less safe. If a soldier's out, and you always want people working at full capacity, soldier readiness. That's what I'm more passionate about, is teaching and bettering the way people perform at the job site, perform when they're sweating from a cognitive standpoint, and just everything else working better. Because if you're thinking clear, then physically you're going to, of course, feel better, but you're also going to feel more protected.
Yeah, better decisions, better focus, better safety. Tell someone where they can follow MyHy on social. Tell us the website where they can go purchase MyHy, and we'll have a promo code for our listeners, which I'll share after this.
Yeah, so all the social media, it's at Drink MyHy, and then our website is drinkmyhy.com, and that's MYHY. We have a shop there. We do a lot of, that's our most standard way to direct to consumer is on our website. But of course, if you're locally in South Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Rouse's grocery stores and some local stores around the areas too. But looking to get into more shops to make it easier.
Yeah, follow Drink MyHy on social. I like it too. It's visually appealing. The branding is great. The feed, the social feed is also just like it's fun to look at. It's also educational and inspirational. So I would say give them a follow, check out the website, use our promo code we'll be sharing in a bit after this. And yeah, I really appreciate your time. I can't wait to see where the brand goes. You have a fan in our household and anybody that I've given it to. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
So happy that you've created this product and that we've got access to it here as well.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your podcast and having me on and what you do, spreading the word and spreading knowledge. And that's all we're trying to do. You spread it on a lot of different topics. We're just trying to spread it on one. So awesome. We appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you very much. And stay hydrated.
Thanks, Matt. So much fun sitting down with Matt, learning about his backstory, learning how MyHy has come to be. Personally, I love how humble and almost even self-deprecating Matt is about it. You know, he is quick to admit that he's learned so much from the people around him and he's surrounded himself with experts. And so for me, hearing that, and I hope for y'all hearing that, it's a really strong lesson that if we have this really good idea, we don't have to have all the answers to launch it. It's something that if we have the seed of an idea, if it's a truly good idea and we can surround ourselves with experts to help us bring it to fruition, anything is possible. Matt and the MyHy crew are also offering our listeners a special promo. So you can check out the full line of products. Like we said, all the different flavor varieties of MyHy Active, MyHy Zero, the MyHy Freezer Pops. You can check them all out at drinkmyhy.com. That's drinkmyhy.com. And Matt and the MyHy crew are offering our listeners a special discount. So you can use promo code FUELED at checkout. And we have full details for you in the episode notes. And let me know what you think. I love the product. It has been a crowd pleaser across the board for everyone I've talked with. So if you try it, let me know. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you'd like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.